Hello, welcome to Claret and Blue. My name's Dan Rolinson. I'm joined once again by John Townley at Hockley Social Club. How are you, John?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
You okay?
I'm very well, thank you for asking. Today's topic of discussion is squad depth and transfers. So we're filming this on Thursday, 8th of June, so this will probably come out Friday, I would expect, because it's the most kind of time-sensitive discussion. We could sit here and talk about a player for 10 minutes and then tomorrow it's revealed that we're not interested in
Football changes quickly.
Football changes very quickly. So I don't think we're going to talk too much on specifics, but it's more a conversation on squad depth really and where Villa need transfers rather than who specifically. So if we go through, not name by name, but Villa's squad at the moment: goalkeeper, defenders, midfielders, forwards. Goalkeeper, straight away you think backup goalkeeper. This is my opinions, by the way, we'll get to you in a sec. Defenders, a right back, possibly a centre half if you're really splashing the cash. Midfielders, I think we're probably pretty much set, but I wouldn't mind another one. Possibly two. Obviously all this conversation depends on people leaving as well, and that's what we'll talk about in a sec. And forwards, again, depends on what you're doing with Cameron Archer, but I would like possibly an out-and-out striker and maybe a kind of right-sided forward winger kind of player.
Profile.
That'd be the kind of profiles. First of all, before we get into any specifics, how do you feel about those kind of positions?
This is a team that's got to 7th place and that only Man City have got more points than since the turn of the year, so I don't think there needs to be major surgery or anything like that. I know a lot of fans love love the sort of transfer window and the sort of drama that goes along with it, and that's understandable, but I don't think Villa will be sort of going sort of hell to leather and trying to upgrade every position in one window. We know that Emery has already said that every position's upgradable. He doesn't mean that in a disrespectful way. He just means that it's like a never-ending pursuit of perfection, basically, with him.
Yeah.
Again, in one window, you're not going to sign 10 players and
if we did that, I'd be panicking.
Or add exactly that, or add competition to every position. There's certain priority positions that some of them you already mentioned. It just depends who becomes available, which of Emery's targets can Villa get over the line basically this summer. In January that was difficult with certain players, a midfielder and a winger specifically, and obviously a striker as well. The right targets weren't available, and I was really happy that we didn't just settle for second best, or that we pushed to bring someone in that at the end of the season and right now would be them thinking, oh well, if they got a future at the club, is that someone we're going to have to try and move on over only 6 months or however long they are into their contract. So in January we sort of held fire a little bit, and clearly this squad is good enough, and he gave an opportunity to a lot of those players to prove themselves, and they've responded by picking up or getting 7th place, picking up all those points that they have and all the performances that they've been putting in as well. So again, I don't think there's major surgery to be had, but yeah, there's a few positions. Obviously right back, you mentioned that's one. Matty Cash is the only right back we have in the squad apart from Konsa, who can fill in, but that's not going to be...
Unless Emery's got some master plan that Konsa's now going to be re-profiled into a right back and we don't sign one, but I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'd say it's very likely that a new right back will be on Villa's list this summer, as well as a new centre back. Not more than one.
How do you assess that new centre back then? Because obviously you've got Mings, Konsa and Diego Carlos at the moment as the big three. Courtney Hawes is still on the books as of today at least. You would imagine he won't be here next season, and Callum Chambers as well. So there's 5 centre halves there. We obviously play a 4 at the back system with only 2 centre halves. I like this idea that you need 2 great players in every position, and a lot of clubs across the Premier League won't have 22 world class players because it's an impossible task to do that, and you've also got like the man management side of it, that you've got to keep those players happy, and signing players knowing that they're going to be back up is an interesting dynamic as well. So the centre back one is the one that would worry me the most. That I like Mings, I like Konsa, and I think Carlos looks a decent player in what we've seen. So I imagine 2 of those 3 start. So do you sign a centre half to come in and be better than those, and your bench is upgraded by one of those 3 dropping out, which would be a tad harsh, I think, or do you sign somebody for 4 or 5 million to be a backup 4th choice? Is that what Villa do now? Is that how we operate?
It's difficult because, again, this is fully dependent on how Emery views his squad. But I think having 2 players for each position is important, because one injury can then derail your season. Yeah. So,
but how often would a 3rd choice centre back have played this season just gone? Like Callum Chambers played what?
But that might have been the difference between us making it past Man United in the League Cup, or then they play those more games. I honestly don't know, but having that squad depth. And again, if you look at our bench, not just in the centre-back position, but in other areas, you wouldn't necessarily say, as you mentioned, a midfielder. Do we need a midfielder? But if you think, you look at the bench, then we probably do. And centre-back's probably the least sort of changeable position as such, as well as maybe your full-backs.
Goalkeeper.
And of course goalkeeper, but of the outfield positions, you might rotate your midfielders quite often because of different reasons. Centre backs not so often because, and as we've seen, Mings and Conte have played so many games as a partnership, and Carlos has struggled to sort of take them out of that. But again, we don't know what Emery's planning in terms of how is he going to change the shape of the team. Maybe he's going to sign a right back who can do a similar role to Alex Moreno, and then I don't know, the left back then becomes more defensive and you could put Mings there or whatever it may be. I'm not sure, but I think it's just having options for different circumstances, and it's always keeping your opposition guessing as well, and having more players available to do different things will allow you to do that. Luca Dean is getting interest from different clubs in France, but I think that's almost up to him in a way. Does he see his future at Villa? He's been displaced at the starting 11, but he's actually played a lot under Emery. He's come off the bench a lot, and he does a good job, in my opinion, against Brighton. He won all of his ground and aerial duels, so he's got a role to play for me, especially going into Europe.
And at the moment, with Moreno being injured until at some point in pre-season at best, it's currently Dean's shirt to lose. He will start pre-season, so it's on him to make that number one role his again. It
is. I think it's difficult because Emery's made it clear that Moreno is his
Moreno
first
will be the number one, but it's Dean's now. If he wants to stick around and fight for it, this is his opportunity to do so.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, and that's why I'd be surprised if he thought it was necessary to sort of leave straight away, because he's going to be playing most games still next year, Luca Dean, just maybe not from the start, but he'll come on and make a difference. And a difference in terms of whether it's a tactical tweak in terms of tucking in more, not bombing on as much down the left as what Moreno does. So it's having two profiles for those positions as well, not just having two players who can play there, because in case one of them's injured, it's having different variations to win a game ultimately. And Luca Dean, for me, has that role to play. From the outside, it might seem like, he's not starting games, he must be unhappy, but I don't know. I think in another way, he'd look at it and say, well, I've played my part in getting Villa into Europe, so I'll stick around and do that. I don't think he played with Everton in Europe, unless I'm mistaken. Seems to be one of those characters that will try and fight for his place. So, that's your back four. And goalkeeper, we should mention it. A backup goalkeeper, again, we have no sort of names for them, or names to come in, but I don't know. It's difficult. I don't know if...
It's a very odd position, isn't it? Because you're signing someone knowing that they're going to play behind Emi Martinez, so what kind of player can you attract at that level?
And Emery has started Olsen in the games against Stevenage and Man United, but for the Conference League games, would he do that? I'd highly doubt it.
Rotate the keeper? You wouldn't have thought so, but there might be some elements where you feel like you have to, because you've got a big Premier League game or something on the weekend.
Man United away in the League Cup, you'd have thought that Martinez would have been playing that, but he didn't play him, so I don't know. Maybe if Emery is sort of... if he really doesn't want to play Martinez for those cup games and he wants a secondary keeper to play those games, well, then you'd look at Olsen and say he hasn't been comfortable playing the way that Emery wants him to play. Whether he can improve, I'm not sure, because he's only played a few games, to be fair to him. But is that a risk you're willing to take when we have a playoff game that we have to win both of those games? Is he going to start Olsen?
I think in the playoff game specifically, you play your best team possible, so Martinez plays in that. But in the group games where you think, maybe this is a game that we can probably
if it's a game
beat
we
with
can
the second
literally
string.
afford to lose, then fair enough. But I think every game you just play your best team. You can't underestimate anyone.
It's an interesting position. I think Moff can probably maybe be slightly more harsh here than you could, but when you talk about rotating your goalkeeper for an easier game, I think if it wasn't Robin Olsen, you might do it. You might think, the second keeper is good enough to play here. I don't think there's enough trust in Olsen from the back line as well to make you think, okay, we can rest Martinez here because Olsen is good enough. I'm not sure that's...
I think depending on how does Emery view that?
Yeah, he might see it very differently.
Yeah, potentially. But does he... Yeah, how much trust does Emery have in Olsen to carry out that duty, and will he be playing a secondary keeper for all of those cup games? Personally, I wouldn't. But if that's what he really wants to do, I'd be surprised if Villa don't get a new secondary goalkeeper, just simply because Olsen, say he has been uncomfortable. You can't. There's no denying that. He would accept that himself. So,
like we said in another video that won't have come out just yet, that we filmed literally just over there, that if Emery's decision is king, and the club think if that's what he wants, that's what we give him, and as fans we do the same. If Robin Olsen is good enough in Nuno Emery's mind to be second choice goalkeeper and play 10 games throughout Europe and the cup competitions, I agree with him and say, yeah, fair enough. It makes my bum twitch a little bit thinking, I don't know whether I fully agree with that, but if I'm trusting Emery to get things right, then we go with what he says.
Yeah, and equally on Olsen, we've only seen him play a few games, and one of those was to keep a clean sheet against Tottenham for 90 minutes. And he's very experienced, Sweden international. Presume he's got a lot of caps for them. Whether he's a secondary keeper, filler or not, or third or whatever it may be, I think he's still got a role to play in terms of, goalkeepers are a very specialist position and they do their own training at bottom heath and stuff like that. So again, all of these players for me still have roles to play. They're the guys that have got Villa to 7th, so we can't just discount them as, you're not good enough to play in Emery's way. Well, even if that was the case, there's still something there that he's been signed for. I'm sure he's a good leader around the group and good in the dressing room and that sort of stuff. So yeah, let's not sort of discount it completely, but based on the evidence that we've seen, he's probably struggled to cope with what Emery's asking what he's asking Martinez to do, and Martinez is an elite goalkeeper. It just depends. Does Emery really think that he wants to bring a secondary keeper to make that sort of fine difference, I suppose, between potentially winning and losing games in cup competitions?
Let's talk about midfields then. The big one that could or could not happen, again, this is why I'm keen to get this video out quickly, because things do change very quickly, is Tielemans is the one that we've been linked with more so than any other, and there's been interest from Roma as well, and so there's a lot of talk on social media, which is where I'm going to come from here, for like the bookies odds and stuff, that he was massively favourite to join Villa, and then that changed a bit. I don't read anything into odds at all because it changes so quickly. It's people put money on, the odds change, it's whatever. We've seen loads of players linked with Villa before as the favourite and nothing happens, so I don't read anything into that at all. Let's just take away the fact of whether it's Tielemans or not for a second. And I said at the start, maybe we don't need a midfielder, but I've changed my mind. We do, because we need extra players. And back to Tielemans specifically, then, because we have to talk about him in the same context that I have to talk about here. That free transfer looks good. I think that everyone looks as in that looks a good deal. I mean, free transfer. Part of me thinks, why is no one else coming for him yet? There's talk of Arsenal, Liverpool a couple of seasons ago, like being this elite midfielder, and I think he hasn't looked great in the last season, but Leicester have been relegated, so I think that can happen. I think he's a technically good footballer. I've seen a clip of him like jogging back at one stage. Like,
I think that's
really
taken well out of context. Yeah, that stuff out of context.
I bet you could find a clip of like John McGinn doing that this season if you look
I
hard
reckon
enough.
You could find a clip of that from any player from any team every weekend, and it's not really not that bad. It's a counter attack probably in the last minutes of the game.
Probably already losing or something like that.
The engine that is Declan Rice is powering ahead to try and score a winning goal or whatever. Tielemans is jogging back. What do we expect to do? Run 300 metres sprinting?
Yeah. It's such a minor thing, but I've seen people like using that against him. Oh, he's lazy, his attitude's not right and whatnot. Again, what we said about Emery, if he thinks he's the right man, I agree with him that he's the right man and that he will have no doubts about attitude and application and things like that. So would Tielemans come in and be a starter for Aston Villa? Right now, I'd say no, because Kamara, Louise and McGinn look very good as a three, and I think you have to have a massive signing to displace one of those three. But would Tielemans be a preferred option to come off the bench than Dendoncker? Absolutely, and it offers something different.
Again, I think because we're used to seeing an Emery team be almost a set 11 players, apart from maybe Leon Bailey coming out and Buendia coming in. We're not used to seeing what he does with a group of substitutes that, with all due to respect to the options that we have now, they're going to be better after this summer window. So next season I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing more rotation. And again, Emery's put so much emphasis on the opponents that are going to be coming this weekend or on Thursday. It's not, I don't think there's a set thing that he just does, or there's a set group of players that he just works with. If Tielemans or whoever is coming in, those players will have opportunities to play in different games to suit that opponent. So to have different profiles of player, like we just said about like Luca Dean, Alex Moreno, because that's the only sort of base we can go off in terms of who's actually signed yet. The first thing that he said was he's a different profile, and that's what we want. And for me, Tielemans is a different profile in a way to the closest thing it probably is to Douglas Luiz, a player who can keep the ball, progress it very well. But his numbers that he was putting up even last season, the season that's just gone, in a Leicester team,
Is
they
that
were
last season now already?
I call it last season because it's gone, hasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose.
Well, Villa's season's ended anyway. It's only Man City's that's still going on. the numbers that he was posting there were still really good. Like, he had 30 more progressive passes than any other Villa player, which was Douglas Luiz at like 140. He was fourth for the most amount of like successful take-ons, so just getting past players. That's something that you'd thought, or something that John McGinn does very well. Yeah. Yet he's well ahead of John McGinn in terms of his completion of take-ons. So he's an excellent player, and I think only 18 months ago people were saying, "Oh, 60 million quid to Arsenal or whoever you know, whoever else." But and I have no answer to why isn't a top 6 team bought him. But I don't really think that matters. If Emery sees a player in him, which he does, then yeah, hopefully Villa can get that one over the line. They want a quick answer with it as well, because obviously it's like dominoes, isn't it, at this time of the year? Villa have got several midfield targets, and Emery wants to sign at least one of them. If Tielemans drags his decision on, or whatever it may be, then other targets might not be there, or along those lines. So yeah, different targets. Lo Celso, obviously they like Guendouzi as well. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Again, hopefully this isn't completely outdated, but I'm not sure where Dendonker's future lies. But for me, when he's come in, he's only done a good job. Add another midfielder or two to that equation that are, that level. All of a sudden, that's one of the best midfields. I wouldn't say best midfields in the league, so obviously that's the best 2-3 teams in the division, but it's a midfield that anyone else in the division would look at and be like, oh wow, that's where's the fault in that? There's a player there to do a certain role in any other game. You can kind of mix and match if you need to. It's not all about partnerships these days. It's about what players can, as I say, come up against an opposition and get 3 points over them. That's the main thing. So yeah, Tielemans is one to keep a close eye on over the coming days, because you'd expect that to be quite quick, his decision, or at least that's what Villa want. So
his goal reel is unbelievable. He scored some absolute bangers, hasn't he? And that's something that when we saw Coutinho, we thought, oh, he'll score a great outside the box effort from at some point. Like, that's what he does for Liverpool. He'll do it for us. Like a rocket from nowhere. Again, it's not as simple as that Tielemans scores good goals and has scored a decent number for Leicester, but if he does come to us and he can play in a similar kind of role and score 5 or 6 goals over the course of the season, that's a nice addition as well. Yeah,
before last season, his lowest total for goal contributions in a full campaign was 9. So I think he got like 9, then double figures 2 years in a row, and then obviously last year they got relegated. And his effect on the team wasn't so much, but I think that's down to many different reasons. That was an underperforming Leicester team across the board. Like, when you've got players that good, there's clearly something wrong in terms of either the coaching or management, how they were set up. I don't know. But yeah, for me that would be an excellent signing. Again, free transfer, like Kamara and
that midfield that you just read out of McGinn, Kamara, Luiz, Ramsey, Tielemans, just those 5 probably, is what, something like 18 or 19 million? Douglas Luiz was 12 or 15, I think. McGinn was like a transfer fee. Yeah. Kamara was obviously free, Tielemans would be free, Ramsey's an academy graduate, McGinn was 2 or 3 million.
2.5,
that. And then, there's great value.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, we don't want to go too much on Tielemans because football changes quickly, and an answer could be tonight. I don't know.
Better check your phone.
We'll see. It's certainly one that.
Would you like him?
Yes.
Okay, that's enough for me.
I think he's an excellent player. I think a lot can be read into, or too much can be read into. He played for a Leicester team that didn't try. He got bad attitude or whatever. Like, I don't get that at all.
No, I don't. There's good players get relegated, and I was going to do like.
I think it's crazy to say like bad attitude and bad mentality and whatever when they're professional footballers, which is probably the hardest occupation to. I know that's going off a bit on an tangent, but when like a manager takes over at like Chelsea, and it's like, oh, he's got to deal with big egos and stuff, and it's like those egos that you're talking about, they've just come through like the hardest thing you could possibly come through, which is like academy football. They've made it, and now they're
very privileged though, these footballers.
Of course they're privileged, but that's because like 0.1% get the opportunity. I don't know what I'm talking about now, but to suggest that the Leicester players gave up whatever last year, I think it's just far from the truth. I mean, the service that he gave to Leicester over like 4 years or something, he probably could have moved on.
Was he there when they won the league?
No.
He came after that. Won the FA Cup, and he scored that goal against Chelsea, I think, in the final. He's a very good player, and I would like him, and he adds something to the Villa midfield, and from a business point of view, it's a free transfer.
He's offering sort of, whoever comes into the club will offer something, and something else that we probably don't have yet. That is what's important to Emery.
Like we said before, if Emery thinks that's the right decision, we have to back it, because he can do no wrong at the moment. We've talked about Ashley Young, haven't we, quite a lot, but if he thinks that's the right thing to do, we have to go with it for now. Let's move on from Tielemans then, because like we said, football changes very quickly, and it seems like that could happen as we speak here tonight, but this time next week maybe he's moved to Newcastle or whatever, and we go, oh,
depends on what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's literally down to him as we speak, basically.
It's the beauty of being a free agent.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let's move into the kind of forward area a little bit then. Ramsey's playing off the left at the moment. It's a very kind of rudimentary kind of approach to formations. Just go Ramsey's like a left winger or a left midfielder. That's his role. That's all he does. Like it's not as simple as that, but he's off the left. Watkins is your main striker.
He's opposite McGinn, yeah.
Yeah, Bailey and Buendia are your second striker, number 10, floating role, whatever you want to call that. And John McGinn is playing off the right, but again, he's drifting centuries, doing all sorts. Those roles they're not wingers, are they? Let's face it. So that's the kind of system at the moment. That number 10 shadow striker, whatever you want to call it, that's the problem position for me at the moment. Emi Buendia, club record signing, 33 odd million, not really delivered enough for me, at least for my opinion, for the money we spent and the expectation he had. I like him, but not seeing enough kind of output. I know it's again a bit of a lazy thing just to go to goals and assists, but on that alone hasn't offered enough for me. But I do like what he brings to the side overall. Leon Bailey can be said similar things of. Spent a good amount of money on him. Did well in the Bundesliga. Has come to Villa to replace Jack Grealish, which is a task that's very difficult in itself, and also hasn't really delivered and has had injury problems with his hamstrings. So those for me, I've said on multiple occasions, I would not be surprised if either weren't here at any point over the next 18 months or so. Just because of what they bring to the team or what they don't bring to the team, probably more importantly. But because we're now in the Europa Conference League and there's more games, and we will hopefully go past the first round of the FA Cup and the first round of the second round of the League Cup, there is opportunity for these players to play and make an impact. So I'm not going to sit here and write anyone off at the moment, because it's a fresh season and a fresh start, and if Emery thinks they're here and can get something out of them, again, I'll back that decision. But having said all that long-winded waffle, I would be astounded if either of those two started the season in that role specifically, because I think we'll sign somebody else to play there.
I'm interested to see how Emery lines up next year in terms of that.
Could be totally different, yeah.
Because again, he's only using the tools that he was given. We know that Villa he wants to sign, and Villa, we know they want to sign a number 9 after Danny Ings left. It was the first thing that Emery said. It was, okay, well, we want to replace him. We might not do it in this window because the targets aren't available. So we'll hold fire. And yeah, a number 9 will probably be coming through the door. How does that change how we would then line up? Obviously, Villa wanted to sign Marco Asensio, who's opted to join PSG instead. He would then be playing in that role of a Buendia or a Bailey. But then if we signed a top number 9, then one of those has to play. Is Watkins going to come out of the team? No, I don't think he would. So I think it all depends about what Emery sees in terms of the targets that he has on the table. Which one of those are going to make a difference in terms of... I can't see us signing a top number 9 and a player that you would probably presume would be playing every game in that sort of number 10-ish role. Both of those players would have to play. And again, it's good for squad depth, but they've got to...
It's also going to cost a fortune.
They've got to join knowing that they're going to be playing games, right? Villa, are only in the Conference League, and the players that we want to be targeting have Champions League aspirations, as we do, but we're not there yet. So it'll be interesting to see who we target and what that means for the makeup of next year, because Watkins could be partnered with a number 9 next season because we've signed a top forward. But then equally, it could be someone that's, I don't know, more so as a winger, I suppose you could say. They could play in that Buendia or Bailey role. I think
that would be more likely. I like the idea of a big proper number 9 to come in who's a goal scorer who puts the ball in the back of the net, and that's their job. I don't know whether I'd see Watkins and another striker playing together. Again, not to...
We don't know what Emery sees, but again, we know that he wants to bring in a number 9, and we have Cameron Archer obviously coming back too. It's going to be interesting how that plays out over the next few weeks. Hopefully we can get some sort of information about what the idea is.
And we'll start soon, and then we'll start to get a bit more of a know
because you want options,
yeah.
But those players that come in will have to be of a certain level that is going to take Villa to a different level themselves. But then you can't attract those players by saying, okay, well, you're going to play behind Ollie Watkins, and because they want to be playing every game.
Yeah, so I think you're looking at...
It's difficult.
I think and again, I don't want to boil it down to if we sign a proper number 9, we're playing 4-4-2. Again, it's not as simple as that, but you got Watkins and this new number 9. I think if we're talking about it from a numbers perspective and we're going, it's either a new number 9 or a new number 10, I think it's probably a 9.5 is what we're looking for. Someone who can do a bit of both.
Dovetail,
Say
yeah.
if Watkins is injured, this new player can play as the main man. If Watkins is fit, this guy can play off him, and it's between the new guy, Buendia and Bailey, as that kind of second striker role, or whatever you want to call it. You've then got 3 options to go there, and then obviously they can all play the John McGinn role as well to a certain extent in certain games. So I just don't know. I don't know who that profile is and who that could be. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and try and pretend to name names, but I don't see it being an out and out striker. I think it's more of a creative kind of player.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a waiting. Let's wait and see what happens. We know some of what Emery wants or would like to do in the window, but ultimately there's another 2 months left of it. Villa want to get their business done as soon as they can, of course, but then some targets that won't be attainable yet because of different offers, different reasons. But yeah, it'll be an exciting window, whatever. And I think whatever happens, Villa will be improved, or the squad will improve from here until now. So
yeah. And that is very much the message, just wait and see. Because we've said a few times, football changes very quickly.
They'll be in a better shape come the end of the summer.
Yeah. Give it 2 months and Villa will be a better side already than they are at the moment. So leave names and suggestions in the comments, as always. We love to hear from you, and we try and read every single comment, and we're going to try and reply to more this season as well. So which positions do we need? Which players would you like to see? Let us know. John, thanks for your time and insight as ever. Thanks to Hockey Social Club for letting us film here. I'm rattling through this outro very quickly because there's a party in this room in a sec. So thank you very much for letting us film here. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next week.